Due to his dependent younger brother suffering from a serious illness, Iris had to abandon his studies and return home to find a job. However, faced with the high cost of a bone marrow transplant, his months of effort still seemed like a drop in the bucket. When meeting with his brother's attending physician, Dr. Barden, the doctor enthusiastically recommended a local philanthropist named Shepard. The affluent Shepard claimed he would host a game in a villa, and as long as Iris could win the game, he would cover all of Iris's brother's medical expenses and immediately arrange for the bone marrow transplant surgery. Upon learning that Dr. Baden was also a beneficiary of the game, Iris became interested in this so-called legitimate game. But to be cautious, he did not immediately agree. That evening, while dining with his brother, Iris received a call about a job rejection. Thinking about his brother's dire situation, Iris finally agreed to join the game. Although Shepard saw Iris, who was alone and in a desperate situation, as the perfect candidate for the game, Dr. Baden, who still had a conscience, believed that Iris was not suitable for this game. The next evening, a driver promptly picked Iris up and took him to Shepard's old mansion in the area. After being led inside by the butler, Iris found 7 people already waiting in the drawing room. The sociable Carl and Lucas quickly approached and enthusiastically introduced Iris to the rest of the group. Before the game began, Shepard warned his son Julian not to break the rules of the game, and Julian, who was uninterested, perfunctorily agreed with his father. Then joined his father at the dining table. While organizing everyone for the meal, Shepard unexpectedly learned that Iris was a vegetarian. However, he showed no respect for her choice and forced Iris to eat the steak and foie gras on her plate by offering a high price of $10,000. After altering Iris's steadfast beliefs, Shepard then inquired about the reason why the middle-aged man, Conway, did not drink alcohol, soy. Upon learning that Conway, who used to be an alcoholic, had been sober for 16 years, he once again attempted to use money to persuade Conway to break his sobriety. Under the temptation of $50,000, Conway ultimately could not hold on to his beliefs. It was at this moment that everyone realized Shepard's enjoyment lay in using money to manipulate others' choices. As a representative of power, Shepard was completely indifferent to the awkward expressions on everyone's faces. He then announced the rules of the first round of the game, and stated that anyone who did not wish to participate could leave now. However, faced with the temptation of a huge prize, Conway, who had initially stood up, sat back down, and the game officially began. When the butler presented his own device, Conway, sensing something was wrong, immediately flew into a rage. However, as he prepared to leave, he was shot dead on the spot by the butler's assistant. The sudden turn of events plunged everyone into panic, and under the threat of death, the remaining 7 participants were forced to choose between electrocuting themselves or others. In this round of the game, both Carl Lucas and Iris chose to electrocute themselves, while the others opted to electrocute someone else. After the first round ended, Shepard gave them a brief respite. But as they hurried to discuss their situation, the young and impetuous Julian suddenly started to boast arrogantly. Provoked by his taunts, Travis, who had served in the military, immediately stood up to retort. However, in Julian's view, everyone was only after his family's money, so he dismissed any talk of morality and ethics. As the second round of the game began, the group noticed that Lavish seemed to become the target of Shepard's punishment, facing the choice between stabbing someone else's thigh with an ice pick or whipping Travis 3 times. Everyone chose to let Travis endure this pain. But as Travis's skin was torn and battered, everyone's mental state also began to slowly collapse. Faced with the unconscious Travis, Peter successfully persuaded Linda, who was paralyzed from the waist down, to accept the stabbing punishment. However, Peter accidentally struck Linda's artery, and he could only hurriedly bandage Linda under everyone's guidance. As the game continued, Linda, who had previously been electrocuted by Amy, took the opportunity to stab her in the thigh. Amy then became furious, and upon seeing Amy's actions, Shepard allowed her to stab anyone. Without any principles, Amy immediately punished Iris, who had been protected by everyone. Iris, stabbed in the waist, curled up painfully on the chair. At this moment, Dr. Barden, worried about Iris, arrived outside the mansion alone with a weapon. As the winner of the previous game, he easily evaded the guards outside the door and sneaked into the house through the basement. On the other side, Peter noticed that Linda was no longer moving, and after checking, the butler found that the elderly Linda had lost her life due to excessive blood loss. After pushing the deceased Linda out of the house, Shepard began to blame Peter for causing this direct consequence. As the game continued, Hale chose to whip Travis. After enduring this torment, the near-death Travis was taken away from the scene. Lucas took advantage of the moment when Shepard was discussing with the butler, and the doctor signaled the injured Iris to escape. Amid the chaos created by Lucas, Carl, and others, Iris seized the opportunity to run out of the dining room with an ice pick in hand. What Carl didn't expect was that Shepard, who was pressing him step by step, actually pulled out a weapon. As Carl was shot dead, everyone was once again brought under control. Iris, hiding everywhere, found that the doors and windows of the mansion were tightly closed. Helpless, she could only hide in the basement. But just as she was about to climb out the window to escape, Julian suddenly appeared and attempted to forcefully let loose with Iris. In resistance, Iris picked up the ice pick beside her and fiercely stabbed Julian in the thigh. At this moment, Dr. Barden also came following the sound, but when Barden was about to take him away, he was shot dead by the butler. With Barden's death, Iris could only be escorted back to the dining room by the butler. The butler also truthfully reported Julian's misconduct to Shepard. Therefore, after checking his son's injuries, Shepard offered a sincere apology to Iris. As the game continued, the butler pushed a large bucket into the room and immediately distributed an envelope to each of the beauties. Inside the envelope was the method of punishment each person would receive. If they didn't want the envelope, they could choose to hold their breath in the bucket for 2 minutes. As the first contestant named by Shepard, Rutubid pretended to analyze Shepard's psychology shrewdly and decisively chose the envelope, only to find out that it merely required him to light a firecracker in his hand. Thinking he had escaped a disaster, Peter immediately let his guard down. However, when he saw the firecracker brought up by the butler, he was startled by its size. To prevent Peter from letting go of the firecracker, the butler, following orders, wrapped Peter's left hand with tape. With a loud bang, Peter's left hand was blown to pieces. Due to the severe shock, Peter also died from a sudden heart attack. Next, it was Lucas's turn in the game. Considering that he couldn't hold his breath in the water bucket for 2 minutes, Lucas chose the envelope. Upon seeing the eye printed on the card, Shepard ordered him to blind one of his own eyes, although he couldn't accept such a choice. But faced with the butler's dark gun barrel, Lucas still swung the knife down. Ha-wah! After a scream, Lucas completed his challenge. However, for Iris, who couldn't take risks, the water bucket challenge was relatively easier to accept. As the eating began, the butler immediately and coldly pushed him into the bucket. Struggling to hold on in the water, Iris suddenly remembered the dream his brother had shared with him before, and his brother's gentle words gradually calmed his initial nervousness, allowing him to successfully complete the challenge. Iris's performance greatly impressed Shepard, while Lucas, driven by curiosity, flipped through the card in Iris's envelope, and, upon learning that the pattern on the card meant having to pull out all his teeth, Iris felt extremely lucky to have escaped this ordeal. As the last contestant, Amy quickly opened her envelope and saw a card with a spiked bucket pattern. To Amy's disbelief, according to the number on the card, she had to endure a 4-minute punishment in the bucket. So, 4 minutes later, Amy also reached the end of her life. As the only two remaining in the room, Lucas and Iris faced the final challenge. With the butler tossing a coin, Iris got the chance to choose first, but she was confronted with a dilemma. She could choose to end the game immediately and leave the mansion alive with Lucas, but she would have to forfeit all the rewards. Or she could shoot Lucas, allowing her brother to have a chance for treatment and receive a substantial bonus. Realizing that his life was in Iris's hands, Lucas pleaded with Iris to listen to the real reason he was there. But just as Lucas began to say that he had 3 sisters to take care of, the previously silent Iris suddenly shot and killed him. Ultimately, with Lucas's death, everyone began to applaud Iris, congratulating her. After fulfilling the promise to perform a bone marrow transplant for Iris's brother that week, Shepard warmly escorted her out of the mansion. Holding the hefty bonus, Iris returned home exhausted, and with the arrival of a new day, she completely erased the evidence of her crime. However, Iris soon discovered that Lily, in order not to burden him any longer, had taken her own life by overdosing the previous night. This plunged the despairing Iris into endless agony. Alright, that's the end of today's commentary. If you enjoyed my video, please don't forget to like and comment. See you tomorrow.